So students, distortion of data also takes place if we are going for median imputation method, because we have seen that we assume a value and that value is depending on the existing value. But it is not necessary that the existing value is the only value which will be present in that not available value. There can be exceptional cases, or there can be a very low value which was there in the could have been in the original data where we are finding NA. So median imputation method is just an assumption which is based on the existing value, and that is one reason that sometimes we can lead to distortion of the original variable distribution or even the distortion of the original variance. Let's talk about certain side effects of median imputation method. Now, variance is distorted. We are talking about variance and we say variance is distorted. So this is the major side effect of median imputation method. When replacing NA with mean or median, the variance of the variable will be distorted if the number of NA is big, leading to underestimation of the variance. Because sometimes it happens that the NA is quite big and the value that we have substituted in NA can be a number which is little lesser than the original value. So in that case, if too many NAs are present and there is a lot of NA present in the total responses, then it can lead to underestimation of the variance. Covariance is distorted. So students, covariance is what? It is the relationship between multiple variables. So the estimation of covariance and correlations with other variable in the data set may also be affected. Because if we are talking of the correlation coefficient between two variables or two columns, we can say that it was coming somewhere between 1 had there been the original value in the NA. But now since we have put an assumed value and the assumed value is based on the existing value, so we might get a different covariance and a different correlation. It can alter intrinsic correlation. Mean median imputation may alter intrinsic correlation, since the mean and median value that now replaces the missing data will not necessarily preserve the relationship with the remaining variables of the data set. So mainly what we are trying to convey over here is that it might alter the intrinsic correlation between various columns, because when we have replaced the missing data with some assumed mean or median, it is not necessary that the relationship between the correlation coefficients between the variables will remain the same. It will alter, and that alteration can be huge, and then it can lead to some other meaning of the data set. So in that case, the interpretation of the data and the relationship between various variables will be changed, which is actually not the case. So students, median imputation method or mean imputation methods are the methods which are approximate methods which can only give an indication of the data. But we cannot, if too much of data is not available in the data set, it is not a good practice to replace that with mean and median and go ahead with our research or go ahead with our data analysis. Rather, we have to look for some other ways that how to deal with such kind of missing data. So students, first of all, we have to make certain rules, and that when to use mean median imputation. First thing is that we use mean and median imputation when the data is missing completely at random. So if the data is completely missing at random, in that case, we can go for mean and median imputation. If the data is intentionally not missing over there, in that case, we cannot go for a mean or median imputation. Now, you must be asking, what is randomly missing data and what is intentionally missing data? Take a scenario where I'm filling the data and I'm very busy and I know that the data is somewhere between 6 to 7. I put 6, 7 for few questions, and rest of the questions I leave blank. Why? Because I have given an approximate answer. But that is the case of a random missing, that randomly I have not filled the complete problem. But sometimes it happens that I am giving a very crucial feedback, and if there is a question like, do you like your boss or not? So in that case, instead of giving the answer no, I just omit that question. So here intentionally I have not filled that value. So this means that here I cannot take an average or an approximate answer yes, because I have some grudges with my senior and I don't want to put yes over here or neither no. So in that case, that data which is missing is not a random case. It is intentionally I have not put that data. So in such scenarios, I cannot use an approximate answer like yes, no, or mean or median. Rather, I have to reject that form, or I have to look for some other options. So this is one very crucial point that I have to understand, that when will I use the mean and median imputation, or on which data can I apply mean, median and get some good answers. Second is no more than 5% of the variable contains missing data. So in that case, if your missing data is there, it should not be more than 5% of the data. Suppose there are 100 records, and out of 100 records, 95% of the data is filled and only 5% of the data is not filled, which means that 5% of the data which is not filled, I will only consider those 5% records, and there I will replace that with mean and median, because 95% of the data is already in my hands, and 95 is a huge number, and that 95 can give me an indication that what that 5% can be. So in that case, if suppose by chance I'm missing any outlier in that 5%, then also it will be very less number. So basically, if my data is more than 5% of the missing data, in that case, I will not go for a mean or a median. Let's take the example of exam. If there are 8 exams, and out of which in the 6 exams I have appeared, 2 exams I have not appeared. So, or 1 exam I have not appeared. So in that case, on the basis of the marks in the 7 subjects, I can consider marks for 1 subject. But if I have appeared in 4 subjects and I am absent in 4 subjects, I cannot find out the average of the 4 subjects and substitute that in another set of 4 subjects where I have remained absent. So that is a scenario that I can put mean and median only for those values where 95% of the data is in my hand. If it is in my hand, then only I can go ahead and substitute mean and median in the rest of the 5% of the records. Let's talk about deriving values method. Deriving values methods are the methods which are used to understand that how to derive values out of a set of values. So there is a CTM method. This method identifies comparable transaction appropriate to the asset to be valued. So basically it is a comparable transaction method. We call it CTM method. And here we are doing a transaction to the asset to be valued. So particular asset that we want to value, there we will do a comparable transaction. We select and calculate the transaction multiple times from the identified comparable transactions. So what basically we are doing over here is that we have some comparable transactions and we are selecting and calculating the transactions multiples in many times, and then we are trying to identify the comparable transaction. So this is a deriving values method. So here basically the idea is that we are trying to deduce the value on the basis of some old transactions or some old values, and on the basis of the old values or some comparable transactions, I am trying to put a value over there. Let's take one example and understand better that what is deriving values method. For example, every month I am doing a let's say a purchase of 4,000 rupees from Swiggy, via Swiggy, or let's say I'm doing a purchase of 4,000 rupees from DMart, and in 1 month I have also purchased stuff from DMart, but I'm not able to mark that entry. So what I will do, I will find out my history and I will find out the amount of transaction from DMart. So I come to know that every month I'm having a transaction of 4,000 rupees, which means this month also, if the data is not available, I'll put an approximate value that is 4,000 rupees. Let's take one more example. Suppose I'm paying fee of my daughter, which is let's say 11,000 rupees per month. So every month I am doing a transaction of 11,000 rupees for the school's account. Now this month the transaction for the school's account is missing in the data. Due to some error, the transaction is not reflected in my account, but I have paid the fee. So what will I do? I will see the history of the 12 months. I'll try to identify the comparable transaction which I have done in the past with that account, and I come to know that every month I'm doing a transaction of 11,000 rupees, and that 11,000 rupees has to be the probable answer, or we can say the derived value for that particular not available data. So this is basically a comparable transaction method where we are trying to find out the value of the particular asset, and then accordingly we are selecting the data and substituting that data into that particular not available account.